you the question and you can kind of riff on it. Are we good? Okay. So, we're out here trying to find out the answer to what extent will there be job loss due to automation in our lifetime? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's honestly going to be a good amount of job loss just because, the first thing that comes to mind is going to a concert or some kind of sporting event. There's really no longer people taking tickets or scanning them. It's you hold your phone up to a reader and it's completely automated. And so that in itself has kind of taken jobs away. And I feel like that's just the beginning of it. I feel like that's a very simplistic example to kind of show like people are going to start losing jobs left and right. I think in every single industry, why would you pay someone when you can save money by having a computer do it? And there's probably going to be less human mistake as well, human error. I think it's going to be very prevalent in the coming years.
So you mentioned that right now in the beginning there's jobs being lost left and right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see the end being like then, if there is an end?
Well, I think it's going to be a while. There's obviously going to have to be people to be creating this artificial intelligence to take these jobs away, I guess. So I think it's going to be a long time before the end is here. And I think there's always going to be some human jobs because people have to just keep this going, in my opinion. But it's just kind of funny to me how humans are creating this technology to literally take jobs away from humans, and it could eventually take their job away. So I think the end is a long way away, but with the growth of technology recently, it's probably not as far away as we think.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the snake eating its own tail.
Exactly.
So
vicious cycle.
So you can see that there will be, you agree that there will be enormous job loss due to automation. Mm-hmm. And once those people have lost their jobs, it is very unlikely that they'll be able to re-enter the workforce. Mm-hmm. And if they do, it is not going to be in one of the new job fields that are emerging. Like a truck driver who loses his job due to Tesla's self-driving semis is not going to become, a JavaScript website developer.
Right.
How do you see the economic future of those individuals who are displaced?
I think it's going to be pretty rough. Again, you can't really just completely change fields. I guess you can in some cases, but I think for the most part, people are going to have to consider going back to school or kind of demoting themselves in a way to a job that's, probably not what they want to be doing, but they're going to be kind of forced into that, in my opinion. But it's probably going to be the less skilled jobs are going to be what goes first. And so it's going to be really hard for people. You're going to have to kind of grow up, if that makes sense, because I feel like the more simple jobs are going to be gone. So it's going to take a while to get to the highest jobs, I guess, the most intellectual. So I think it's going to be really, really tough for people to kind of adjust to that. I don't know exactly how they would do it, but I guess school or I don't really know.
Do you think there will always be jobs for humans, no matter the competency of AI?
Oof. I would think so. I think there has to be someone kind of creating all of this and kind of giving these ideas life. But I do think that it would be possible kind of towards the end that eventually computers could probably start doing this themselves. But it just kind of blows my mind that that's kind of probably the end goal here, and people are kind of doing themselves a disservice and shooting themselves in the foot by growing this technology so fast that's probably going to put everyone out of a job. But so short answer, I think eventually, honestly, probably there won't be any human jobs left. In a really long time. I think for the most part humans are going to have to kind of keep moving this forward, but I think eventually that would definitely be a possibility.
How long before you see that 100% job replacement? 2045, earlier, later?
I think later.
Later?
Yeah.
2060? 2020?
Honestly,
100?
Maybe 3,000.
3,000?
I don't know.
So
I think it's going to
years.
take a really long time. Okay, maybe not 900 years. I don't know. That's dramatic. But I think it's going to take a really long time to completely take humans out of the equation.
Sure.
Because, that's it. It just that seems totally impossible right now. But, with the growth of technology, that's probably a possibility. So.
One of the solutions about this job loss is a universal basic income. So that would look like every citizen in the United States above the age of 18 would get a check from the government for $1,000 cash. They could spend it on whatever they want. That $1,000 can be just for the sake of argument. So that is one solution offered by people that see this problem. Namely, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg say that there must be a universal basic income instated, that there is no other choice. I'm more open-minded. What do you think about universal basic income as a solution?
I mean, I think it's a good idea in theory, but I think people spend money so differently. I just don't know how that would ultimately work. I think it's a good start, but I don't think that would like completely solve the problem. And it's also kind of like, what would people do in all their free time? I mean, yes, there's income, but there's also like time. It's like, how would you like people would be so bored, and it would just like, I think, cause a little bit of chaos, honestly.
So you think, okay. You would say that people would run out of things to do and that we would be bored. You don't know how it would work. So how it might work, how universal basic income might work. One option proposed by Andrew Yang, who's running for president, he suggests that we have what is called a value-added tax. Are you familiar with that term? So a value-added tax, or VAT, is a tax added on to extreme luxury items that are not necessities. For example, if your yacht, costs $11 million, you might not care too much paying $12 million, and that extra tax on top would then be redistributed as a universal basic income. Another idea, which is what I came up with. I'm not saying it's the best, but the idea would be taxing machines at the rate at which they replace employees. So if let's say you're Target and you have a self-checkout line, every time you fire like a cashier, then you have a self-checkout thing that has like six self-checkout with one person.
Right.
You would tax all those machines at, it's like 6 people times the tax that they would get.
Right.
So,
right.
And then that money would be redistributed.
Yeah.
So in terms of how it would work economically, that's one choice. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And I guess in theory there's more money to go around if it's not going towards people's salaries. So I do think that probably would work to an extent, at least. I don't really see how it wouldn't work, but it's kind of like, how do you determine who, like, so everyone gets the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or if you have nothing. Everyone gets 1,000.
Which, that's an interesting concept in itself, kind of putting everyone on an even playing field. I think that's an interesting concept in itself, but I think it is like, I think there would be a lot of backlash on, like, someone who's went to Harvard would be getting the same income as someone who like maybe didn't go to school, or something like that. So I think there would probably be a lot of negative feedback with that approach.
I agree that there would be negative feedback. It won't be too popular among certain political parties. But my point is that I don't see any other way around it. If not for universal basic income, can you think of any better alternative to the redistribution of resources?
No, honestly, no.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I don't like the whole idea of AI to begin with. I mean, I do to an extent, but I think the extent that it's taking people's jobs is a bit far. So, but to answer your question, no, I can't think of a better way. And I think, as long as everyone's getting something, I guess people can kind of adjust to, let's say someone's getting $3,000 as a paycheck and they would have to adjust to $1,000. I think people would eventually do it. You wouldn't really have another option, but it's an interesting
they would still have their job. You could still have your job. We would just have a universal basic income additional.
In addition?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea would be for base necessities for survival due to job loss due to automation. $1,000 a month would you wouldn't have a perfect life, but you could have a real life.
Okay.
You know, as
Okay.
opposed to being a homeless person.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
And the other thing about the universal basic income, when you said you don't like artificial intelligence, and then you backtracked it, but
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I want to draw an analogy or a comparison to technology today and like the end of the Paleolithic era. So the Paleolithic era was right before we had farming. Neolithic is we have farming, and that allowed us to have surplus resources. That was the first instance in history, 10,000 years or more, when we first started having, animal husbandry and such. So this, that slight abundance of resource, I don't think it ruined anyone's life. I don't think anyone felt like, oh, what is the meaning of my life if I can't go hunt for berries?
Right.
They found something else to do.
True.
They found music and poetry and just all of human culture that we have.
Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we, instead of picking berries, we made that.
Yeah.
So in terms of the progression of technology in the human condition, it seems to be a net good, because we don't, unless you're like the Amish person, we don't go backwards.
Right.
No matter how many teens die from texting and driving, or how many teens eat Tide Pods, we're still going to have these technologies because they're doing something good for us. So in the same way, artificial intelligence is leading us in that direction as well.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Do you still?
Yeah. I think it would lead probably to a lot more inventions, and it kind of, some of these very futuristic movies that have been coming out, everyone's kind of like, how is this not a thing yet? It's 2019, like, why don't we have flying cars, like that kind of thing. So I think it would definitely kind of force people to be creative and start coming up with, new ideas, new inventions. So I think in a way it would actually probably push us forward, not only on the technology front, but probably on a lot of other fronts as well. Namely because people don't really have much else to do. So, yeah.
I heard one analogy, actually, before Jeff Bezos was Jeff Bezos, he had a TED Talk describing this subject tangential to this.
Yeah.
He was describing how the advent of AI is as subversive as the advent of electricity. Like when we think about AI, it's easy to think about, like you said, the pop culture instances of it. But what we think of the pop culture references to it, but instead we should be thinking about how it comes up in how it occurs in your everyday life, and then how it is immediately forgotten. Like Google is something we never think about.
Right.
The Netflix algorithm for picking your movies is something we never think about.
Right.
Things like flying cars are not information technologies. Those are mechanical technologies. So those are not going to advance at an exponential rate. So you're not going to, like, maybe this building has been here and this whole area has been unchanged over the past several years, but every single person here is walking around connected to a highly trafficked system of information at speeds, at insanely fast speeds. So while we don't see it happening quite as much, I notice that when it does happen, people are very dismissive of it. When Tesla released their autonomous level 5 self-driving cars, which is fully autonomous, a couple months ago. And when that came out, I excitedly told one of my coworkers at my job, to which he replied, didn't they already have that?
Yeah.
And that just made me want to pull my hair out, because they had level 4 and level 3, but this is, you can sleep in your car now.
Right.
So, but the fact that he just thought it already was in the world shows how it's not, people think that it's never going to come, but in a lot of ways it really is already here. We don't see it embodied walking around. There aren't ambulating robots up and down the streets, but they're, in your pockets. There are still these minds, invisible, operating things. So I think I went on a tangent.
No, you're fine. I totally agree.
Okay, so I guess I'll leave you with this. Ask you this question. there are a lot of shaky political situations going on in the world right now. With technology being something that is quickly acquisitioned by the military-industrial complex and weaponized, what do you think is our best bet to safeguard ourselves as humans, to help have a better, more prosperous utopian society where the difference between our society and our future society with AI might look as different as pre-electrical societies and electrical societies, or Paleolithic eras societies and Neolithic societies. So what do you think is the thing we ought to pay the most attention to going forward?
In regards to
job loss due to automation and like making sure that there isn't, like extreme weaponization of
Right.
AI, extreme privacy infringement, just AI going bad, essentially.
Right. I mean, I think, developers in the government probably just being as transparent as possible. I think that's been a big topic of discussion in a lot of political instances and a lot of things. I think being transparent is hugely important to the public. I think just kind of not taking it too far, honestly, to be really simple. I think people just need to be aware, like, this eventually could literally lead to the loss of, like, so many jobs, and so it's kind of just keeping that in perspective and just kind of keeping it in mind. Use it for good, develop AI to help the world and make the world a better place, I think. But I think kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, as opposed to let's develop this as fast as we can to like save as much money as possible, but potentially put out billions of jobs. Like, it's just, I think keeping a balance of like doing good, but also like not off-putting so many people. Yeah.
Very good. I think we'll leave it there. Thank
All
you
right.
very much for your time.
Thanks
Have
so
a great
much.
evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, guys.
Yes, thanks. That was amazing.
This is for a project?
Yeah, for school.